All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series 86 Voyager Class Wreck-Gar. This is a figure that I have been anticipating for quite a while now. Wreck-Gar is one of my absolute favorite designs and characters from G1. And yeah, we've had a good figure or two of him in the past. I know a lot of people really, don't like that Reveal the Shield Deluxe Class Wreck-Gar. I think that's a pretty good figure. The one complaint about it that, I will admit is that it is kind of a pain to transform back and forth, and this one is much less so. And, this one does capture a lot more of like the G1 aesthetic, whereas like that one was kind of like a skinnier sort of redesign, which I didn't mind. This one is definitely like that bulkier robot mode. And, it has a few other things. Finally, we've got Wreck-Gar who's able to like actually have like wheel spikes and stuff like that, which just like, I understand why they haven't done before, just because like uh you having like a bunch of little spikes sticking out the wheels, I feel like it'd be prone to breaking. They've kind of compromised here by making them more like wheel nubs, but I think it works pretty well. Does of course affect how well he can roll, because like if you have a surface that has a good amount of friction, then like it rolls just fine. But if you're on like a flat tabletop or something, then it tends to just like stick between two of the spikes and just slide along. Luckily, my foam core background here, he can roll pretty well. He does also have a couple of kickstands here. You could, I think, get it to sit just fine with just one of them. If it bothers you at all that the motorcycle has two kickstands, but to make it the most stable, it is helpful to use both of them. But if you fold those up, then he can definitely roll pretty well. He's also got these spikes sticking out of the side, which are nice. They're like a flexible-ish plastic, where they do feel like they've got a good amount of rigidity to them. Like they're not like rubbery or anything, but they do feel like they've got enough flex that like they wouldn't be so prone to breaking, which is good. Although, if you really bent them, I think that they would snap before like, just bending and going back into place. But, that's kind of a trade-off there. I'm sort of surprised that they were allowed to make them this rigid of plastic and have them be like, pointy like that, just because of like child safety things with toys. But, for us collectors, that's nice. Otherwise, yeah, he's got like the flame deco here on the top. He's got little dials here, which end up on the back of his robot mode head, because like, it's sort of a cheat, I guess. I mean, it is technically a cheat in that, the front end of the bike doesn't actually become his robot mode head, even though like it's got a lot of the same visual details. But like the way that thing changes shape in the movie, like it's just impossible. So it's like, yeah, they've now had it so the head is on the inside and just has some similar details, which is fine. It's not like it can be like the G1 tour where this whole big section just becomes his head and looks kind of stupid and dopey. So I get why they did that. He does come with this accessory, his little axe weapon here, which also can spin pretty freely. And as for storage here, you've got a couple options. I mean, they're all in the same place, but you've got this hole back here, and there's a peg on the side there. You could have it facing up, so he's got kind of like a propeller in the back, sort of, or like a windmill sticking out of the back of his alt mode, but that does like make the handle kind of bump into the spikes of the wheels here, which kind of sucks. You could fold it the other way, which has a bit more clearance options, but then if you want to like, tilt him up like he's doing a wheelie, it only goes up that far before the thing starts to hit the ground. But, you could also treat it like he's got like a, propeller propulsion. But the best way to get it out of the way, and like, so you're not bumping it into the wheel, is to rotate it sideways, which, kind of ruins it as a propeller function, but it was never really intended to be that anyway. So that's the way I do it. Usually that kind of weapon storage bugs me, where you're just like pegging it onto the vehicle, but like with Wreck-Gar, like he was never really a robot in disguise, because he turns into a gigantic robot-sized, vaguely alien-y, vaguely earthy motorcycle. Like this guy was never blending in on Earth or anything like that, so it doesn't bother me as much to have his weapon pegged onto the side like that. And it's like, it's fairly small too compared to the rest of the vehicle mode, so it doesn't really mess with the aesthetic a whole lot. In terms of size comparisons, I didn't bother transforming like all of the guys that I'm going to show them off with in robot mode into vehicles, just because like you know that he's just like a super large, motorcycle and compared to cars. But here he is with Blur, Studio Series Blur, just because like that was one of the ones that they rode alongside in the movie when they were fighting them, and I feel like in the movie they were a lot smaller compared to the cars. Not like quite as small as like actual motorcycles, but they were more like in line with the cars. Whereas like now that he's a Voyager, he's obviously like a lot bigger than Blur, which is it's fine. I mean it was always a silly scale to begin with, but like I do sort of wonder like how that scale would have worked a little bit better if this guy was a deluxe, because I also feel like he's maybe a little bit too big in robot mode too, at least like from what we see of like the animation and stuff like that. It doesn't really bother me having like this new version of Wreck-Gar be bigger, but I'm just kind of curious what it would have been like if it was like the same figure, just like scaled down to a deluxe price point. But yeah, here he is also with a Siege Sideswipe, just for a kind of standard size comparison. And then I'm going to bring on some figures to see who works well actually riding him as a motorcycle. We've got Cup works okay. Like I find that like some of the bigger deluxes or small Voyagers are like the best scale with him. Cup works all right. It's like you can kind of get him on there and you can get him to hold the handles, but it does look a little bit awkward overall. One thing that I think Cup really lacks is he doesn't have a wrist swivel, so he has to hold the hands out like this rather than like with the elbows bent down but his hands facing forward. So I think that makes it look a little bit goofy. The handles themselves are not quite 5mm handles. They're like a little bit smaller, so that figures like the end bit of him here I think like is so that it has a bit more of a firm grip, but they've left it a little bit looser so that you can kind of like futz with it a little bit more to get like figures to hold on to it that otherwise like really wouldn't be able to bend their arms perfectly to line up with that, which is nice. But like scale wise, I think that looks relatively okay. Let's put that off to the side for now. One figure that I find works pretty well with it is not the more recent Earthrise RC, but the Thrilling 30 RC, just because like another feature that really helps is like because he's a bigger figure, you need to have kind of like wide hips so that their legs aren't like awkwardly splayed out to the side. And because of like RC's transformation, she's got those joints where her hips kind of widen a little bit for transformation, so you can use that a little bit to get her in a position where she's sitting on it fairly well. Of course, she doesn't have 5mm whole like hands, so she can't really like actually hold on to the handles. And also, like I said before, doesn't have wrist swivels. So you kind of just have to like hover her hands there, or having her hold the brake levers or whatever, and it looks okay because she can tilt her head up, but she is a little bit too small for this, so she ends up having to like lean forward like that. One figure that I found that like oddly works pretty well with this is just like has all the right marks is the Trailbreaker and Hoist mold, just because this figure has kind of wide hips, has sort of skinny legs, has wrist swivels and relatively long arms, has the ability to tilt his head up like that. So it's like I think like he's one of the ones that I feel like looks the best on there, but he's not like he's not a 1986 movie character, so it's a little strange to have him be the one who's on there, but I think that looks pretty good. Just he just kind of hits all the marks of like the ideal sort of figure shape to be on there. But yeah, I mean, it works relatively well with a number of figures, which I feel like is probably why they made it a Voyager too, so that it would work with like bigger deluxes and smaller Voyagers, because like I feel like most figures that they would want to put on him kind of fall into that range. And then the last figure to mention that who can ride him pretty well, I'm assuming, is himself, because if you look right here, he's got a tab right here, which is used for transformation, but remember that tab for later, because I don't have two of these guys, but I do know that they're eventually going to do like a separate Junkion repaint of this guy. So I'll probably pick that up to see, to have those work together, but I don't really have an interest in getting two Wreck-Gars to do that. But this tab ends up being relevant in robot mode, so we'll circle back to that. But for now, I think let's move on to the transformation. So yeah, first thing, we'll just take the weapon and put it off to the side for right now. Both of the wheels do unpeg, but you kind of have to do it like throughout the transformation. So we'll flip up the kickstands there. The back here, the legs, which you can clearly tell that those are the legs just bent forward, but they unpeg right here. There's just a little slot on the toe that pegs into a tab on the shoulder, or what will become the shoulder. So you untab those, and you can bring this section down, bring the legs down like that, bring the feet up, and then this is a good place to unpeg the legs here and take the wheel out. So you do have to parts form the wheels a little bit, but that's okay. And then the wheels they pretty much just go all the way through on the peg there. So what you actually do is these spikes that are on the knees and the elbows, you actually just feed that through that hole there and peg it on like that. And that's pretty cool. And then for the arms up here, we just want to pull this section down just a little bit to untab it. The chest section here tabs into the like the upper arms, just so you can then split the arms and do the same thing with this wheel and bring it and put it onto the forearm there. Then you can bring these sections out to the side. All right, how does this work? Okay, we want to bring this section up on this joint and then bring it on like that. And you have to do this before messing with the body, because this piece needs to be tilted forward in order for you to have enough clearance to like straighten this out and bring it down like that. So got it like that. Then the chest section here the head is sort of inside of this here. So you just bring that whole section down. You want to bring it down on this beige joint and just straighten it up like that. Then this little armature here, you want to bring the chest down so it's in line with the panel here that the head is on, and you can bring the head down too. And then you want to double hinge this whole section in so it sits like that, and the chest sits flush like that. And then the top section here, you fold this into the body itself, and then you take the windscreen and fold that up a little bit deeper. If you push that, it'll actually like click into place, which can be kind of a pain to get out when you're going to vehicle mode, because you really do have to like get your thumb in there and like get onto the orange plastic to pull it out, because you don't really want to like yank on the clear plastic to do that, but you gotta get used to it. Then the handlebars here will fold to the back. Then you want to take the shoulders here and rotate them forward, and these tabs right here will go into the back of the chest piece, and this whole section kind of hinges up to line up there. And yeah, that's mostly it. You then take the arms here, straighten out the shoulders, rotate the forearms, and pull the fists out of the back of the forearms there. Do that on both sides, and just everything, and there you have Wreck-Gar in his robot mode. I'll adjust the camera a little bit here, so got some space to work. And yeah, he looks pretty good. You can his little nipple cannons, chest cannons are on ball joints. It's mostly so like in vehicle mode, since this piece is at an angle, you can angle them up to be pointing forward, but you can really do whatever you want with them, but I just like to have them pointed straight forward in robot mode. And yeah, he's got a pretty good aesthetic to him overall. Some of the joints are a little bit loose, nothing too terrible, but it's like kind of the thing where like enough of the joints are loose enough that when like you're messing around with him, then things tend to like bend under pressure that you don't even realize that you're putting on it. He can obviously hold his weapon here. I'll just peg right into his hand like that, and you can still spin it. If you want to not have him holding his weapon, that same peg now can attach to this piece back here. I mean, you could, I guess, put it in the same place that it was for vehicle mode, but why when you've got this much better peg hole to put it in? And that connection feels a little bit tighter too than this one, which is nice. But yeah, that's an easy way to store it. In terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint here. It's pretty good range, and you can see, I'll just put that off to the side for now. It's kind of easy to bump off just because of the shape of it, but see his face sculpt here. What's kind of weird is his little beard section here looks like weirdly unseated from his chin. I don't know if you can see that, where there's like the slot that it's in is a little bit bigger than like where the beard is. It kind of makes me wonder if that like was supposed to be a different shape originally, and then they had to like tweak it for like fragility reasons or something like that. But it does look a little bit weird on his chin there. It's not the end of the world, just like not quite perfect. But yeah, his head is on a ball joint. The shoulders here are on just like mushroom peg swivel joints, and they can also tilt out to the side like that. And he's got the sculpted detail under there to for when he moves his arm out, which is nice. That joint is one of the ones that's like a little bit too loose, especially on the arm where he's got like the big heavy wheel going on. It's not terrible. It's just like a little bit looser than I'd like it to be. He's got a bicep swivel. About 90 degrees of bend at the elbow there. The wrists can swivel, which is good because, if you, like when they eventually do the other version of this mold to ride the motorcycle mode, he has one of those things checked off. He's got the wrist swivels, so you can actually hold the bike like that, which is good. And then while we're on that subject, there is a little slot down here that I'm pretty sure would fit that tab on the seat in vehicle mode. So I'm pretty sure that this would line up. And I think his hips would be wide enough to make that work. I cannot confirm that for sure because I only have the one figure, but that is my suspicion, is that he would ride his own vehicle mode fairly well. He's got a waist swivel, which is I've seen some reports that it's like super loose. It's not terrible loose. It's just like a little bit looser than I'd like it to be. It's more of like a feel thing rather than like a huge problem where he's like flopping around or anything. But yeah, that's all right. He's got these little hip skirts here, which have like little pouches sculpted on them that you can tilt out to make room for the legs. Also, another joint that's a little bit too loose is here's that peg, by the way, what it's used for in the transformation. This can be used as kind of like an ab crunch type joint, but I wish that tab was just a little bit tighter because like this doesn't actually really lock in very securely. And because he's got, kind of a heavy upper body, it is fairly easy for that to like come undone. Like I find that happening a lot more than him like spinning around at the waist. But so that's a little bit annoying. Again, I wish that tab was a little tighter or that joint was a little tighter. And now for a joint that is somewhat too tight, his hips. They're not really too tight. They just have that annoying thing where they've got like the detented ratcheting where this is one ratchet and that's the second ratchet and that's too wide. That always bugs me. They're like kind of soft enough that it's not too big a deal. But it is kind of annoying. And like he looks okay when you get like one leg out to the side or something like that. Like I feel like you can still get him in fairly candid poses without his, and his legs also don't look too bad when they're in that stock position of like straight up and down, just because they're already wide enough apart. And then if you like tilt them a little bit to the side, then I feel like it still looks fairly good. But it is kind of annoying that to just widen his stance a little bit, if you want the legs to be symmetrical, that's the closest you can get. Irritating. But otherwise, goes forward and back just fine. And then you can obviously tilt that out to the side, although, with the side with the wheel on it, it obviously hinders that a little bit. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got a little bit under 90 degrees of bend at the knee, but that's okay. They can obviously still bend forward for transformation. And then the feet are pretty well articulated because they can tilt forward and back for transformation. And then he has an ankle tilt, which kind of funny is that his whole foot doesn't actually tilt. It's just like this little platform, the bottom of his feet, which functionally works the same way, but it is kind of interesting that they decided to do it like that. So yeah, I mean, because he's got like that basically 4-axis of tilt on the ankles, you can get him in some pretty nice flat-footed poses that are, have a variety of stances and stuff like that, which is nice. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the articulation. And yeah, we can get on to some comparisons now. We'll start off here with the standard size comparison. There he is with Siege sideswiped, just so you can get a general sense of size of the height there. He's a fairly tall Voyager. I was expecting him to be one of those like deluxe or like deluxe-y size Voyagers that had just like more features and stuff like that. But he is actually fairly tall, which is maybe not super accurate to his on-screen model. Like I feel like he could be a little bit shorter in comparison to the other guys, but I don't really mind him being a little bit bigger. And then we'll bring on the what I have so far of the 1986 crew. Here he is with Ultra Magnus and Springer. And so we've got here Kingdom Ultra Magnus, Siege Springer, Studio Series 86 Cup, Studio Series 86 Blur, what is it? Thrilling 30 RC, because I feel like this is just a much better looking figure than the more recent one. And I want to say Titans Return, maybe Power of the Primes. Pretty sure Titans Return Wheelie. But yeah, there they all are together. I don't have Rodimus Prime yet, and I don't like. I'm not going to get Studio Series Hot Rod for personal reasons because I don't like the way that he cheats to get the chest to be like the hood of the car. But you know, that's neither here nor there. But here they are together, and I feel like that's a pretty good look overall. He was like mostly the same height as Springer in the movie, so I feel like this works fairly well, but he is a little bit bigger than Springer, which I feel like was why, you know, I could expect him being like maybe a little bit shorter than Springer. I feel like would be mostly accurate to how he is in the movie, but I think that's close enough. But yeah, no, he's a pretty good figure overall. I mean, I've got issues with some of the way that the joints feel and stuff like that, but overall, he does look fantastic. And you know, most of those things are things that like some of those joints are probably easy to tighten up, and some of them like it's not that bothersome. It's not like he's like a floppy mess or anything. He's just like got a few too many places that just feel a little bit too loose, pretty much. So, you know, it works pretty well overall. And I do think that, like, in terms of the G1 aesthetic, he does look a lot better than the previous Wreck-Gars that we've gotten. And, you know, I found it kind of a strange decision to make him a Voyager, but I do think it works pretty well overall. And he's definitely the first Wreck-Gar to get things right, like all the spikes and stuff like that on the wheels and then on the legs and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the other thing is like the way the wheels peg on, you could do it like symmetrically if you like that better, to put them both on the knees or both on the arms. This is how it was in the movie, so that's the aesthetic that I like, but you can move them around and put them really wherever you want. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about this guy. Great looking figure, less than ideal joints, but still pretty all right overall. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Studio Series 86 Voyager Class Wreck-Gar.